The oath. Those of us under this pledge are not at liberty to discuss the contents with any person except those directly involved, at any risk for any purpose, at any time or place without the consent of all. This pledge is primarily concerned with mature guerrillas, those who know what must be done and have dedicated their lives to securing this end. Those under this pledge have chosen to carry out the necessary actions, duty, with courage and sincerity to the best of our abilities, to the bitter end. Therefore, we have no regard for any obstacles, human or otherwise. We are not at liberty to trust anyone. Therefore, everyone is to be considered as enemies or guilty until proven innocent. Those are deep words right there. A brief analysis of history will clearly illustrate that the best and wisest men have made these simple mistakes by assuming the nature or matter of a person or thing is more than it really is. Thus, acting on this assumption, which usually leads to regret, we will not continue these events, nor will we repeat the above-mentioned downfalls. It is not our duty to trust people. Our duty is to rid humanity of the many institutions that deprive the ignorant masses who serve these institutions blindly, yet in good faith. We shall only believe in the dead, i.e. trust only ourselves. No one else can be trusted or believed in. No matter how trustworthy they seem, by act, appearance, or talk, trust them not. Never evaluate a man by what he is saying at the moment or by what he has said in any other time, nor by what he has not said, only implied. Always observe his overall continuous actions to see if his words coincide with his physical deeds and actions. In other words, see that he practices physically what he states verbally, since rhetoric comes easily from an articulate man. We are in the struggle for humanity to possess a future of peace and prosperity, not personal wealth. We are not motivated by any form of patriotism. This quality places symbols before people. Instead, we have joined the struggle to eradicate the evils and injustices bestowed upon the masses by the despotic ruling class. There goes a photo of none other than Young Dragon. We as black revolutionaries cannot become bogged down in or by any form of racism, but because whites are devious by nature and will give their daughters to put a cease to our endeavors, none can ever be trusted, even if they're known to be revolutionaries. To promote revolution, we must solidify all black colonies. Whites must do the same, and until this has happened, there could be no talk of solidarity. No guerrilla can be a racist, since racism is bred in hatred and callous hate is personal. We cannot afford personal feelings of any variety. If you desire to share the pleasure of this society for the simple sake of allowing in a mire of pleasure and not the advancement of the revolution, then you are on a personal trip and there is no truth in your struggle. If you want such things as fame, glory, recognition, wealth, voting privileges, fair education, equal employment opportunities, then you want equalities and not liberation. Pacifiers are your wants, along with compromises and pity. There are no grounds for anyone to hold these views on the battlefield, unless they desire 6 feet of dirt, stained with their own blood. Anything beyond this, expect not, since life gives nothing more than you deserve. If you read Mayo as a guideline for the present day struggle in this country, in this geographical location, rather than read for his militant insight, then you are in error. Your struggle has been defeated from the jump. Since the conditions here are different, the environment, social, political, and cultural norms in China and America are different. Even the peoples possess another frame of mind and thought, expressions and actions. One, China is a people's republic, until the other, America, is a democratic republic in name only. There, the man is the ruler of the house. Here, woman is. In this country, loyalty is first and foremost to the individual, and yet society is merely man united for mutual protection. This contradiction adequately points out the worthlessness of this society, since it does not negate its social function by teaching individualism. Every guerrilla must use his imagination to create speedy remedies in time of need. Mao has not exposed how to survive in actual battle, nor who to watch and why. Every situation is different. Thus, never limit yourself on your mentality to prominent revolutionary personalities such as Mao, Mark, Che, or any other for that matter. Trust your instinctive drive, since instinct is stronger than reason under trying situations. Study all revolutions and all revolutionaries for insight and rules that govern revolutions, but look not in them for day-to-day guidance. Our situation is not the same one they participated in. Don't become confused in what you represent. You are striving for the revolution, not the people. This is partially what makes you a maverick guerrilla. Since a maverick recognizes no doctrine, no custom, no organization, no party other than the one he is directly involved with, the maverick guerrilla is untamed, and untamed he must remain. He acts independently, recognizes only those he is directly associated with. The revolution. The revolutionary must not act in behalf of the people's rules of, or adhere to, the doctrine of some distant organization. And the party of said group, which can only be done in stages, and the process is slow and unbalanced, due to the fact that those at this safe distance do not now or later know what the problems are, only that they exist, because they rely only on the words of others for their informations. Since pseudo-revolutionaries keep their distance from places of action, thus, chances for success are limited. The guerrilla. The guerrilla considers no one or thing besides his objective. Therefore, he has no sportsmanship. He deals with the element of surprise. He knows the unexpected is the unprotected. Guerrilla forces are always small in numbers. Therefore, all security is enforced as dedicated men are hard to come by. The guerrilla must apply all his resources to protect and build on the lives of the comrades as well as advance the revolution. The guerrilla should learn human nature to the point where he knows what to expect from people and how to combat the wrongs that will eventually arise. In essence, rather than talk, observe and gain an understanding of what is being imparted. Remember, observe, analyze, calculate, and evaluate the reason of an act. This in turn will give you insight on counteracting the effect. This is putting protection on yourself. Human nature is and always will be important for all guerrillas to know. People's unawareness. We must accept the fact and understand the false mode of existence the masses hold through their ignorance of social conditions. Due to this, we know that the people will not hinder or destroy society, since the days of the people are society's ways. The one distinction is society is aware of this, while the former is ignorant to said fact. Realism as opposed to idealism. We must understand and accept the fact that we are not living for what we want, but instead we have dedicated our lives to the revolution. For in it there is the solution for gaining a meaningful life. We are not struggling for idealism, but for the reality of existence. Photo of George Jackson, not a BGF founder, but very instrumental in their plight. Here we go. Advancing society or advancing the revolution. We must never think in terms of advancing society, but in terms of advancing revolution. To cherish society means to resent revolution. Thus, we equip ourselves to destroy society, the customs, education, and economical superstructure. These things in part enable this to continue existing, since combined they promote control over the masses. Advancing the revolutionary cause is not merely a goal one can enter into to be what's happening. It's a way of total, all-consuming life. Let none who do not believe in this wholeheartedly enter our ranks, for the wrath of the believer is far more deadly than the might of the oppressor. Natural law of revolution. We must recognize the laws of revolution before any other law. It firmly states, in order to build first, one must destroy. In order to build a true culture in a corrupt society, first and foremost, the old society must be destroyed, thus making place for the new. It is understandable that all aspects of human existence, such as politics, economics, interrelations between people, or whatever, there will be found rules. Just so we are governed by rules, thus rules are only a reflection of the existing status quo. Because our creed is revolution, the rules we have devised to govern us must necessarily be more valid, since they emanate from the highest order. Also, since the society's destruction is our ultimate goal, we must be twice as cruel, 3 times as dirty, 1,000 times as merciless, and we must strike first and swiftly with precision. Dedication to the cause and adherence to these simple rules will lead to victory. Another law, especially apt under a capitalist system, is, in order to gain, someone must lose. The common people have suffered the most from this precept. Now it's time the ruling class experiences misfortune at the hands of the oppressed toiling masses in exact proportions. 2 points to remember. First, before the new can live, the old must die. Second, none can live forever. So destroy and worry not for the new, and Lady Death is on our side. Never underestimate the opponent. We must never underestimate our opponent, since to do this means limiting his ability and creativity, which are mostly unknown, and therefore should be conceded to the enemy, thus strengthening our resolve and determination by strengthening our warriorness. Any failing of this nature indicates you are exaggerating your own ability. An exaggerated conception of oneself is harmful to the cadre as the overall struggle. To place a boundary limit on your opponent's ability signifies you limit his actions. Thus, you are unprepared for the unexpected. Under these types of circumstances, will most surely die. It is unnecessary to die from not being prepared. Thus, not the eagle, for it causes foolish deaths, and we are not struggling to die, but to bring about a new life. A law of nature. It is law of nature that the weak perish at the hands of the strong. The bourgeois are weak crafters who live off the labor of the strong, the broad masses. We are the strong, and the bourgeois are weak. We must live, and they must die. Trust in the dead. Sacrifice the foolish. Always remember and apply the following. Those persons capable of being trusted are only the dead. Since then, hear nothing, see nothing, ask nothing, and tell nothing. Therefore, believe in the dead, and on all necessary occasions to increase their population. Whether it be an old or young man, a beautiful or ugly woman, or even a child capable of talking, if they observe you in action, hesitate not in making them victims also. Remember, all are guilty until proven innocent. Standing alone. All guerrillas must, under certain conditions, stand alone regardless of the odds, regardless of the expected consequences. Therefore, knowing two things are essential. One, learn to utilize all available resources, and two, diligently guard your actions so that you're never caught in a compromising position unless it is of your making. Secrecy of all activities. Secrecy is like having a beautiful woman you want to keep for yourself alone. Share with her a stranger, though a word, a thought or deed, and she ceases to be yours alone, since in essence, by your act, she was given to the world. At this stage in our struggle, only clandestine, secret activity is useful. To become known will lead to becoming unknown, but to those things which inhabit graveyards. Striving for wealth. We must understand that those who worship man, material products, money, and the things it can buy, will sell out their souls and their body and soul if it is profitable or if it will save any minor discomfort. Therefore, watch them continuously. To us, money and anything derived from said only have value if it is instrumental in helping us achieve our goal, the destruction of this capitalist society. Honor is like ignorance. We have no honor. It is a form of self-praise, and this is equal to ignorance, which cures nothing, therefore. It is invalid, and we will still exploit, deceive, murder, and do whatever else is necessary or advantage to us. Performance. Each comrade will perform his duty in accordance to his qualifications and abilities. We have not joined together to fall in the pit of foolishness. Therefore, we are not at any time required to follow any comrade's whimsies or caprice unless it falls under the heading of necessary, being of necessity our guiding force. Then it must be done at all cost. Remember, we are obligated to none other than each other, so we must stand together under all situations. Project no egotism or any other reactionary behavior. A breach of faith, whether big or small, yesterday, today, or tomorrow, can only cause second thoughts in a time of need. So guard against pettyism, for it may save or lose your life. An oath is a sacred pledge. An oath is a sacred pledge. It binds a guerrilla for life. It gives and changes mere existence into truly living, for it is a product of cause, our reason for being. Nothing said or done can change or release anyone from the essence of this oath, except your ultimately death at our hands. Until death, we will serve the revolution with loyalty, dedication, perseverance, and sincerity to the struggle and our fellow comrades. Power to the revolution and death to all dissenters. Nazisma, Tushinde, Mabishaka, we shall conquer without a doubt. There you have it, man. That's basically the BGF's, their oath, their constitution, basically their manifesto as far as their beliefs. And before I go into elaborating a little bit my thoughts and my perspective of it, let's first and foremost recognize that the time era when this was written, some of the individuals that were part of it, and some of the things that happened. A lot of these prisoners were what you call political prisoners, based upon their influence out there in the streets, like George Jackson, Huey Newton. They were trying to promote change within their people, and they were faced with a lot of prejudice, abuses, and so forth by the system. That's kind of self-explicit, man. So the hatred that they had towards the system in general, it kind of would make a lot of sense, because some of you guys may not have experienced the prejudices that you see today, as opposed to back then. It was on an extremely higher level. And that's not to justify some of the things like they put in their manifesto, their oath, their constitution, or whatnot, but it's to give you guys maybe a clearly understanding of the things that used to occur back then. Kids were being killed, men were being killed randomly, You know what I'm saying? Being attacked. Police were very corrupt at that time, and you know, Counterpol and all that, CIA, they were trying to infiltrate these neighborhoods and trying to destroy them because they considered them a threat to this country. Now, to the Constitution in general, man, I think that, you know, they kind of derived a lot of their insight into the communist ruling. You know what I'm saying? Which I don't believe a communist system will ever work. And it's kind of contrary to what the NF is. The NF is straight pro-capitalism. They're against the injustice of the system, but they're pro-capitalism. And see, BGF later on had a split, you know, between their organization because some wanted to engage in illicit activities, some wanted to keep the old ideologies of the radical movement. You know what I'm saying? So as much as there's certain things that I see in this oath that makes sense, but there's also things that to me don't make sense because, you know, a revolution, I don't see how a small faction of people, masses, can bring a whole destruction to a government. It can cause a little bit of effect, instability, and so forth, man, but it's almost like fighting a cause that's no longer going to exist. And see, they believed in armed struggle, doing whatever they needed to do. As you see in there, they said, we'll get 3 times dirtier, we'll do this and that. There's no limitations to what they can do, as well as their goal is not for their fellow comrades, but for the revolution. The revolution came first before their fellow comrade, which could cause a lot of dissension and division. You know, it's written like someone that's very intelligent, that can articulate themselves well, but then it kind of goes a little bit, becomes almost over exaggerated to a certain extent. Like I said, it's hard for me to really give a very impartial breakdown and concept of it without me experiencing what was going on at that time. You know what I'm saying? Some people get these radical ideas, and that's how it was during that time era, that they could bring that much change. You know, there was other leaders at that time and other minority groups that were taking non-violence approaches. BGF was a little bit different. You know, I've met cats that were in the BLA, Black Liberation Army, that were down, and they told me stories about shooting at the helicopters and so forth. And, you know, they were basically pushing for their struggle, you know. And now 40, 50 years later, some of those that made sacrifices, no one's really paying homage to what's been done. You know, the system was very had showed a lot of favoritism towards white inmates. That's a fact, and that's what helped the Aryan Brotherhood in a lot of scenarios. The Aryan Brotherhood was straight treacherous, do not get me wrong, but their numbers did not equal that of the black population. And it was their alliance with the enemy, which was a smart one, which enabled them to continue, you know what I'm saying, to propel their movements. You know what I'm saying? So the BGF pretty much going against the system, I think, so hard is what kind of destroyed them. It led them to their demise because they were fighting a war that could not be won because of the corrupt masses and so forth, man. It's not that they didn't have a fair and just cause in a lot of their beliefs, but at the same time, you got to look at things from a reality perspective. You know what I'm saying? The system's very, very difficult to beat, especially during that time era, especially being a minority. You know what I'm saying? Everything's going to be working against you. They also show in this a lot of racial overtones, even though they say they don't believe in racism. They straight make directions towards the white, and even saying that they can't even trust any white revolutionaries. And see, that's not gonna bridge the gap to having those, you know what I'm saying, relate or become attached to what struggle and cause you're trying to push. You know what I'm saying? You want to sit there and try to embrace all humanitarian individuals who can help you out in your plight. You know what I'm saying? If you don't have to have everybody on your side, but if you can at least neutralize them. And if you give a standoff impression that you're racist or that you're against anything white, you know what I mean, there's going to be a lot of individuals that are going to be pushed away by that or affected. You're going to create enemies, you know, where you may have a common white dude who doesn't care. He's not racist. He's just doing time. Now that your actions towards him, it's going to have adverse effects. It's going to have repercussions, you know. So as you know, like I said, a lot of this was drawn from the Maoist Che Guevara era, you know what I'm saying? And all these socialist orders, you know what I mean, as much as they say they stood against oppression, they ended up having a tyranny type of government, tyranny type of individuals who abuse their power and their discretion, you know, so it becomes hypocritical, you know. And I seen one thing of their goals was to basically destroy everything in order to rebuild, you know. Sometimes you got to sit there and compromise and find ways to repair, you know. And there's been things that have been established because of the unification of all races behind the prison walls as they end all hostilities. Can you imagine how much more advancement the system would be if they would have been thinking like this 40, 50 years ago? Exactly. But it was a different time era. There was a lot of racism. There was a lot of prejudice. So a lot of black inmates had the right to feel a certain way in how they felt. But at the same token, it didn't really do anything to lead them in the right direction. You know, and as you start to try to put forth the ideals like they did, these are kind of very much dictatorship ideals if you think about it. If you read it, it's telling you what you have to do. It's not telling you that, you know, this is an option. It's telling you that there's no other alternative, you know, and it's very hard to get individuals that are self-committed to something like that when their liberties are taken from them. You know what I'm saying? So I found this oath and Constitution very, very, very interesting because I believe in this wholeheartedly. All laws, all constitutions, all manifestos, and so forth are man-made, right? So therefore, you're giving it to people who have man-made faults, whose whole agenda may not be for the best interest of what they represent. And that's clearly what you see here. Is not everybody is on the same page with the BGF. The BGF ended up being basically they became destable. They became a non-factor. You know what I'm saying? Other groups started to come out, Crips and Bloods. You know, you can't really force your beliefs upon everybody. You know what I'm saying? You have to sit there and take steps. Now, I met a lot of BGF later on who had a whole different kind of persona. They were against the system and they had the radical ideals and they were pro about their African culture, but they were respective of everybody else. You know what I mean? But when it came down to it, a lot of their racial overtones would just come out and be explicit for everybody to see. You know, you can't hide that. When you show that to other people, people are going to have a different perspective of you. And that's clearly what you've seen in this. You know what I'm saying? But there's a different time era. You know, things changed. Like I said, they had a split where some wanted to engage in criminal activities, others didn't. Because every cause and movement knows they have to be self-supportive. You know, and when money comes, everything becomes corrupt. Agendas start to change and individualist goals come about. And that's what kind of led to the demise of the BGF, to where they're no longer really a factor on these lines. Baltimore and Maryland, they have a strong nucleus. I heard their Fed faction is pretty strong, but in the state, you have so many different African-American or black groups, whatever you want to call it, man, that are in there. Kumi, Crips, Bloods, civilians. Then you even have the Crips and Bloods that are separated. Sac Blood, Sac Crips, LA Car, you know what I mean? It changes. There's not as much unification towards a common goal. Now, when it comes down to race, they're going to rock. You know what I'm saying? When it comes down to the particular car, they're going to rock. But even then, sometimes you'll have scenarios where if the LA Crip car has an issue with this particular group, the San Diego Crip car or the Northern Crip car isn't going to jump. You know, it's, you know, it depends on the circumstances of where you're at, man. But anyways, man, this is a quick spiel, Real Talk with Flacco. I don't think I've ever seen the BGF oath or Constitution put on YouTube. So I think maybe this is the first time anybody's ever been able to hear it or read it. And it was hard to read because the way they worded it sometimes, you know, it's hard for me to read the lines, and some of the sentences were not really in sequence like they should have been. So bear with me when I read it, but I think you got the concept of the nucleus of what it was all about. Anyways, this is your boy Flacco, man, coming live and direct. Let's see what else I'm gonna drop today, man. Shit, nothing but bangers, man. I'm out.